Good morning. My name is Nilufer Zihnioğlu. I'm a professor of civil engineering in Boğaziçi University, Istanbul, Turkey. My colleague Yasin Engin is also a civil engineer and a graduate of Boğaziçi University. I would like to very much thank him for supporting me during the preparation of this presentation. Today, I'm going to talk about the effects of COVID-19 on the construction industry of Turkey and the effects of the actions taken by the government during the pandemic. Here is an outline of my presentation. First, I am going to give some information regarding the calendar of the events for COVID-19 in Turkey. Then we will talk about the condition of construction sector before pandemic. Then we will evaluate the effects of pandemic on the sector by considering different parts of the sector, such as the residential sales, the number of new licenses, overseas contracting services, and employment. And we will also talk about actions taken by the government during that times. Finally, I am going to very shortly talk about the need trends, how people reacted by the end of the pandemic by means of their preferences. So if we check out the calendar of events in Turkey, we can see that everything began for Turkey during February 2020 with cancellation of international flights from and to the affected countries. By March 11, first case of COVID was reported in Turkey, and immediately after this, all the schools were closed nationwide. Later, from mid-March till the end of the March, all restaurants, cafes, mosques, many workplaces, shopping centers were closed, national games, nationwide exams were cancelled. And during April and May, months of April and May, we had curfew for all seasons for several times, and this curfew actually was continuous for the senior and junior seasons of the country. And in May, the government announced that gradual stretching of the restrictions would be applied in May, June, and July, and it actually happened as they stated. So this figure is obtained from the webpage of World Health Organization, and it represents the number of cases or the change of new cases, COVID cases in Turkey. As you can see from the figure, the confirmed cases, confirmed serious cases made a peak at around end of April and beginning of May. So these were the times that we had curfews already. And then when we approach to the months of summer, the number of cases decreased. Now we will begin to talk about industrial data. Before we begin to talk about industrial data, I would like to give annual growth of Turkish construction industry for the last couple of years, since this is going to give an idea about the condition of the construction sector even before the COVID, how things were going for construction sector before COVID. The thing is that construction sector has been the leading sector in Turkey for the last 20 years. And when the supporting industries such as building materials, construction machinery, engineering, and architecture are taken into account, the share of the sector goes up to 30% in the overall economy. Unfortunately, there was a downturn in the construction activity, and this downturn was deepened in 2019, as you can see from the figure. Later, in 2019, growth numbers begin to increase. Unfortunately, with the arrival of pandemic, the growth in the positive direction was turned back again in the negative direction. So the condition of construction industry, even before the pandemic, was already not very good. Then what happened and how the companies are affected because of the pandemic? This is a general
evaluation. The first thing was that there was significant recession in infrastructure and construction tenders. Increased costs due to increase of oil prices and building materials resulted in rearrangement of prices, and this was also due to depreciation of Turkish lira, and that very badly affected the companies. And finally, extra costs occurred for companies due to COVID-19 measures. As a result of all of these, and for some reasons that we cannot actually, maybe we have forgot to mention here, the non-performing loan debts of the construction companies increased 4 times in April 2020 when compared to the same month of 2018, according to the Banking Regulation and Supervision Agency of Turkey. Now we are going to evaluate the effect of pandemic on construction industry by considering different parts of the construction industry, beginning from residential sales, because residential sales takes an important share from the construction industry. So what happens to the residential sales during the first wave of pandemic? Please check out this figure. This figure represents housing loan annual interest rates. And when you check out this figure, you can easily see that even in 2019, housing loan interest rates were very high in Turkey. And because of that, the number of residential sales were low. But then during the summer months, immediately after the peak times of COVID, the government took an action and decreased the housing loan interest rates to revive the construction industry, to revive the residential sales. Now, we will see the effects of this decrease in the housing loan interest rates, how this affected the residential sales. As you can see from the figure, we have actually 2 data given on this figure. One of them is the total sales, which is represented on the left-hand side of the figure, and the other one is the bar chart, which actually gives the share of mortgage sales in the total sales. So you can see the percentage of mortgage sales on the right-hand side of the figure. When we examine the figure, we can easily say that the residential sales, the number of residential sales were quite low in 2019. It made a peak by the end of 2019, but then again, with the arrival of pandemic, the numbers decreased again. Around this time, the government took an action and, as we mentioned a couple of minutes ago, decreased the housing loan interest rates. When the housing loan interest rates are decreased, the people actually began to shop for residentials. As you can see, there was an important and steep increase in the number of residential sales. And this is explained based on decreased loan rates as well as revenge spending. What is revenge spending? You may have heard of these. You know, the people were at their homes for quite a bit time, for a couple of months, and the people that were planning to buy residentials were not able to buy that houses or homes or apartments. But when the curfews ended, people went out and they began to look for the things that they were planning to buy already. So as a result of this decreased loan rates and revenge spending, the number of residential sales highly increased and made a peak around July, month of July. And then, unfortunately, the numbers decreased again because beginning from this month, interest rates increased again. And house prices also increased because of the increased sales. As you can see from this figure, average residential unit prices increased very steeply in the months of summer, and that actually prevent people from buying more houses or more residentials. Now, if we consider the new licenses, this is actually a great representation of the construction sector also, because when a company applies for a new building license, this means that in the next couple of years, the company will be constructing. So we should also check the number of new building licenses. If we see this figure, we can see the building licenses, the number of new building licenses increased again during months of summer and then decreased. But this is a good representation, and it tells us that there was a revival of the industry during these months. And the reason for this could be explained based on decrease in the house stocks because of the increased house sales. Another important factor is the overseas contracting services, the change in the overseas contracting services. Turkey companies are really active in the overseas contracting services, and this could be easily understood from this figure. As you can see, the share of the Turkey companies were really high in the past years from the overseas contracting services. Unfortunately, if you check out the number for the 2020, for the first 9 months of the 2020, the share of the companies really decreased because of the effect of pandemic. So this highly affected the condition of the construction companies in Turkey. What happened to the employment? If we check out the numbers regarding the employment, this figure represents number of employees in the construction industry. Unfortunately, there was a decrease in the number of employees in the construction industry in the first couple of months of 2020. This was mostly because of the pandemic. Here at that point, the government banned the layoffs, and that actually made a good effect. In the meanwhile, at the same time, there was a revival of the industry because of the increased residential sales and because of the number of COVID cases had decreased during the summer months. So we have observed an increase in the number of employees during the months of summer. This figure is prepared by McKinsey and Company. It is an analysis which represents the degree of affection of different industries from COVID-19. Here, this part represents the construction industry. Uppercase letter D represents the construction industry. And according to that analysis, construction industry is located in less to middle affected zone and middle to high financial risk zone. This is actually also valid for Turkish construction industry. Now, we have up until this point, we have been talking about the effects of pandemic on the construction industry. Now we will talk about the actions taken by the government. What did they do to be able to decrease these effects of the pandemic on the industry? One of the first actions was about public procurement contracts. The government gave opportunity of extending the time or terminating the contract. According to this, a contractor may apply the government, stating that the performance of the contractual work has become impossible temporarily or permanently, partially or completely due to the COVID-19 outbreak. And this application is evaluated by the Ministry of Treasury and Finance. And as a result of the evaluation, it may be decided to extend the time or terminate the contract. Regarding employment, as of April, layoffs were banned by the government. That was an important decision. This situation still continues, and the employees and companies were supported with short work allowance. Some other actions were obtained considering loans, debts, and payments of the companies. Some tax debts of companies have been delayed. Delayed payments were made to companies for state-funded projects. That was also important. Loans were offered by several banks for supporting all of the industries, not only the construction industry, but other industries also. And as we have mentioned before, housing loan interest rates were lowered as of March 2020 to revive the residential sales. The last part of my presentation is about the new trends and change in people's tendencies after first COVID wave. What happened? How people's preferences change when they are buying houses or residentials or in their way of living. You know, the research shows that people, since they were stuck at home for long times during the pandemic, if they have a chance to work from home or house, they began to go to their summer houses, or sometimes they decided to buy new houses in the resort areas of Turkey, in the west shore of Turkey. You know, other people who were living in big apartments, they preferred to move, if they have a chance, to the houses with gardens and balconies. They also represented their choices by choosing smart homes. Why were they choosing smart homes? Because new smart homes may come with some new features, such as a ranged humidity and temperature level, which actually creates some kind of a hygiene at home. And you know, there are some robotic technologies which may clean the house or home, and this helps people to keep the place with a certain hygiene level. What other preferences did they represent? You know, people mentioned that they may need separate ventilation systems for each and every room. They preferred the places with no elevator, and the designers, architects, actually began to design houses with offices inside, because many people now began to work from home, and this may actually change from our habits. In the future, many people will continue to work from their home. Other things that were preferred by the customers or the people were, you know, many times people preferred more than one bedroom in their places. They preferred antibacterial materials, antibacterial flooring covers. They also asked for sound insulation because, you know, during this pandemic times, we were at home as a whole family for long hours. Now that's the end of my presentation. Before I end my presentation, I would like to give an idea about the current situation. Unfortunately, now in Turkey, we are living the second wave of COVID. The number of cases as of November 25 was reported to be more than 28,000. All schools except preschools, restaurants, and some workplaces were again closed beginning from November 17. So we will see what happens next during the next days of winter. I would like to wish all of you healthy days during these difficult times. And I would also like to thank you for listening to me. Have a good day.